Hello, the Divine Code reading for February 22nd, February 23rd, pages 521 and 522. We are in the chapter Precepts related to marriage, fornication, and divorce. Continuing in topic 11, which discusses the casual sexual activity. From God's words, that's Rashi on Genesis 2:24 and Ramban also from God's words. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. It is a natural and appropriate way for a man to marry a woman and establish a family. One who deviates from this path is mistaken and acts against God's will and his creation of mankind and their character. So humanity was created. God created humanity that a man would leave his family and cling to his wife. And therefore casual sexual activity goes against this concept. Furthermore, those who engage in promiscuous relations commit animalistic actions. And this is even worse than the animals, since the animal has no comprehension to understand any other way, unlike a human whom God had given a superior intellect. So animals, we can't blame animals for being animals, but we can blame a human for being an animal because a human has the capacity to be higher than the animals. And this is the way of animals, that a male typically cohabits with any female that appears ready for it. This is why all living creatures were created at the onset as females and males, since it is fitting for their nature. In contrast, Adam, the first man, was created alone, and only after he searched and discovered that he needed a mate did God give him the first woman as his partner. This shows us that the correct way for a man is to look for a specific wife and to build a life partnership with her instead of acting like an animal with casual sexual relationships. God also differentiated the humans from animals in the way that they should cohabit. Animals have no mutual understanding of their mates at all. This is why God created animals so that their natural way of mating is that the male enters the female from behind and does not see her face at all, which is reflective of the fact that an animal has no understanding or love in this act. In contrast, when a man or woman are involved in relations, it should be when they have mutual love and understanding between themselves, which is a personal bonding relationship aside from the purpose of appropriating. So the sexual activity between humans is not primarily for the purpose of procreating, or not primarily for the purpose of desires, physical desires. It's because there's an emotional attachment between the man and woman. And in casual relationships, that emotional attachment does not exist. But rather, in a casual relationship, it's more of an animalistic mannerism rather than a human mannerism. Proper human cohabitation is termed knowledge in the Torah, and it says, and this is in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, and in many places in Scripture, the verb to know, yodah, is used for the union of intercourse. In comparison, see Rashi on Genesis 18:19, that God's expression regarding his affection for Abraham, Yada Ativ, meaning love and honor, is from the same root word. In contrast, the cohabitation of animals is called mating, Sarbia, in Leviticus 19:19. So in Genesis 4:1, and Adam knew Chava his wife. Therefore, the anatomically nature means of cohabitation for a man and woman is face to face, through which they will share their mutual recognition and love. But a person who cohabits in harlotry and an animalistic fashion, in that the couple has no mutual recognition or love. So in casual activity or in harlotry, there's no love involved, and there's no mutual knowledge of the other person. It's purely animalistic. It doesn't involve a recognition of the other person. Thus the prophet related. This is in Isaiah 45:10. The world was not created to be empty, but rather settled. And licentiousness is not the way of establishing a populated and settled societies in the world. Instead, it is chaotic and harmful for society. Topic number 12. It is said concerning a woman who from time to time acts licentiously. Now, this is all said concerning a woman who from time to time acts licentiously. So, what was just spoken of was concerning people that are casually from time to time behaving in this manner. But one who acts this way frequently with any man is essentially a prostitute, and it is forbidden for Gentiles to allow such a woman in their midst. See Kings 1, 1 Kings 14, verse 24. And this prostitution, and also prostitution was in the land, and they did all the abominations of the nations. Targum Yonathan translates this as a wayward woman, implying that this was the abhorrent thing for Gentiles. It appears that based on the concept explained in this chapter, the verse commanding Gentiles to make the world settled forbids them to do any action that logically causes the destruction of society. So prostitution must therefore be banned. From the verse calling it an abomination. And it is known that many evil actions are done in conjunction with the prostitution industry, including kidnapping, theft, murder, injury, bribery, drug addiction, and child abuse. Prostitution itself leads to a rampant adultery and the decay of society. So when men and women are behaving licentiously and in a casual manner, that's bad enough for society. It doesn't build up society. However, when it becomes rampant and gets into the in the category of prostitution, that actually causes a destruction to society. This behavior causes the world to be full of prostitution and moral abominations, as it says in Leviticus 19:29. Do not degrade your daughter as a harlot, so not to defile the land, and do not fill it with licentiousness. See Rambam Laws of a Mature Virgin 2:17 and Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer chapter 177. That this verse is said in reference to any type of prostitution. Even though Ramban, in his arguments on Rambam's Book of the Commandments, Foundation 5, argues with Rambam and holds that the only prohibition is for forbidden relations or marriage, but not for two single people. It is clear that he agrees that such action is abhorrent, and he is only arguing with Rambam as to whether one is liable to be punished for this. The verse brought in the main text here is not illustration of liability, but rather proof of the abhorrence of the practice. So what's being explained here is not the person will not be liable in a court under Torah law. However, the courts can decide to prohibit the activity. And the courts have many things they can decide. They can decide, speed limits, all sorts of things they can decide, including in the areas that they decide for the sake of having a civilized world, a settled world, is concerning prostitution. And the courts should decide how to handle prostitution. The courts are obligated to prevent the people of their land from doing so, and to close down all brothels and fine and punishment all men and women who practice or promote prostitution. See Shulchan Aruch, Evan Hazer, chapter 177, and Rashi on Numbers 22:5, that the nations have accepted extra precautions regarding forbidden relations. But Baal gave them, the Midianites and the Moabites, advice to commit licentiousness as an attack against the Jews. This implies that is a practice that breaks down the norms of society, which Gentiles are commanded to protect. So Gentiles are commanded to protect society. And Bilam, according to the way it's read in the book of Numbers, he left. He gave final advice to the Midianites and the Moabites of how to damage Israel. He knew that to damage Israel would be through licentiousness. In the very next chapter, that's the very next part of the story. That's what happens. So that was seen as a tool to damage society, and we know from that then that it's known amongst the nations that licentiousness will damage a society. Thank you.